If you're over 60, take a moment and ask yourself, what is your biggest regret? Is it the love you didn't express, the dreams you put on hold, or the moments you let slip away because you thought you had more time? How many times have you told yourself, I'll do it later? Later, I'll visit my old friends. Later, I'll spend more time with my family. Later, I'll take that trip, learn that hobby, or finally slow down and enjoy life. But what if later never comes? What if one day you wake up and realize that the time you were waiting for is already gone? I've seen it happen. My best friend, David, was just like many of us. He worked hard, planned for the future, and told himself he would enjoy life when the time was right. Once I retire, he would say, I'll finally live the way I've always wanted to. He had a list, places to visit, things to experience, people to reconnect with. He truly believed he had time. But time had other plans. At 72, he passed away suddenly. No warning, no farewell, just a life interrupted. And in our last conversation, before he left this world forever, he said something that still lingers in my mind. I thought I had time. 3 days later, he was gone. His suitcase remained empty, his dreams unfulfilled, his list of someday moments never checked off. And as I stood at his funeral, surrounded by memories of a man who had spent his life waiting for the perfect moment, I realized something painful. He had waited too long. That night, lying awake in bed, I couldn't stop thinking, how many of us are making the same mistake? How many of us are living as if time is guaranteed, as if we can keep postponing the things that truly matter? We live under the illusion that we can always say, I love you tomorrow, that we can always make amends next week, that we will always have another chance. But life does not work that way. One day, tomorrow will not come. So let me ask you, if today were your last day, would you be proud of the life you've lived? Would you feel peace knowing that you cherished every moment? Or would you wish for just a little more time, to hold someone's hand a little longer, to share one more laugh, to wake up with a purpose that goes beyond routine? If you still have time, don't waste it. And if this message resonates with you, if you believe life is too precious to let slip away, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to Elderly Wisdom Story, because here we talk about the lessons that truly matter. Now, let me share with you 3 powerful life lessons I wish I had learned sooner. Lessons that may just change the way you live the years ahead. Time is the cruelest illusion. When we are young, it feels endless, stretching before us like a road with no end. We live as if there will always be more days, more chances, more years to do the things we've set aside. And so we tell ourselves, not today, not now. Later, I'll visit my parents. Later, I'll call that old friend. Later, I'll spend time with my children, take that trip, enjoy the simple things. But later is a dangerous lie. It comforts us while quietly stealing everything we will one day wish we had held onto. James knows this now, but he learned it too late. He remembers the way his son used to run into his office, his little hands clutching a toy, his eyes filled with hope. Dad, can we play? And every single time, without hesitation, James would say, not now, buddy. Maybe later. Later when this deal is done. Later when work isn't so busy. Later when there's more time. But time does not wait. The request stopped. The laughter faded. The little boy with the toy truck grew into a man with a life of his own, one that no longer had space for a father who had never made time for him. And now, as James sits alone in a quiet house, staring at a phone that rarely rings, he wonders how many times his son stood on the other side, debating whether to call, only to tell himself, maybe later. And isn't that the cruelest part? The cycle we don't see until it's too late? We push away the people who love us, believing they will always be there, only to wake up one day and find ourselves standing in an empty room, listening to the deafening sound of silence. James thought he had time. David thought so too. James can still hear the way his friend used to talk about retirement. His voice filled with excitement as he listed all the things he would finally do. One day, I'm going to take my wife on that trip we always talked about. One day, I'll slow down and enjoy life. One day, I'll reconnect with the people I've lost touch with. But one day never came. David collapsed in his kitchen one morning, his heart betraying him before his plans ever had the chance to become memories. His suitcase was still empty. His bucket list remained untouched. The phone calls he meant to make were never dialed. The words he meant to say were left unsaid. James stood at his funeral, staring at the closed casket, and felt something inside him break. Because in David's story, he saw his own. A life filled with waiting. waiting for the right time, waiting for things to slow down, waiting to finally live. But time had made its choice, and it did not wait for David. And it would not wait for him either. It doesn't wait for any of us. We like to think we are in control, that we have ownership over our time. But time is not ours to keep. It is borrowed, and one day it will be taken back. And when that day comes, it will not ask if we are ready. It will not care about the money we made, the success we chased, or the plans we had for the future. It will only leave us with one thing: regret. Regret for the moments we let slip through our fingers, the embraces we pulled away from too soon, the words we held back because we assumed we had forever to say them. Regret is heavier than any burden we carry. It lingers in the silence of a house that was once filled with laughter. It echoes in the empty spaces where love should have been. It lives in the photographs of people we wish we had spent more time with, in the memories we never made because we were too busy making a living instead of a life. And yet, somehow, we continue to live as if time is guaranteed. We push off joy. We delay happiness. We tell ourselves that someday we'll do all the things that truly matter. But what if that someday never comes? If you are still here, if you still have time, don't waste it. Don't let it slip through your fingers while you're busy chasing things that won't hold you when you are old. Don't wait until you're standing in front of a gravestone, whispering apologies that can no longer be heard. Don't wait until you're left staring at a silent phone, hoping for a call that will never come, because this is your chance. This is your time. And if you don't reach for it now, you may wake up one day and find that it's already too late. James used to believe that happiness had a price tag. He spent his life chasing numbers, numbers in his bank account, numbers on his paycheck, numbers that he thought would somehow buy him the life he wanted. Success, as the world defined it, was measured in wealth, status, and possessions. A bigger house, a newer car, a growing investment portfolio. These were the things he worked for, sacrificed for, built his entire existence around. And yet, now, as he sits in his quiet, empty home, he wonders, was this really the life I worked so hard to build? He is everything he once thought he wanted. The house is grand, the furniture elegant, the car in his garage a symbol of all his achievements. But none of it fills the silence. None of it brings back the voices that once echoed through these hallways. None of it replaces the warmth of a home that used to feel alive. He walks into the kitchen and, out of habit, reaches for 2 coffee mugs. For years, every morning started the same way. His wife would sit by the window, waiting for him to join her. She would smile, pat the chair beside her and say, "Just sit with me for a while." But James was always too busy. Later, he would say, already glancing at his watch, already thinking about the meetings ahead. But later never came. Now, he stands alone by that same window, staring at the empty chair across from him, and realizes the painful truth: the wealth he spent his life accumulating means nothing in the face of what he has lost. The coffee cup she used to drink from is still there, untouched, gathering dust. He runs a finger over the rim, and for the first time in years, he feels the weight of all the mornings he missed. He is not the only one who knows this kind of regret. A few weeks ago, he met Mary, a woman he often saw sitting alone on a park bench near his house. She was 78, with kind eyes and a gentle voice, but there was a sadness about her, a heaviness that lingered in the way she spoke. "My husband passed away 5 years ago," she told him one evening. "We had a good life, you know? We worked hard, saved every penny. He always wanted to take me dancing, but I was always too tired after work. I always thought we had more time." Her voice trembled as she looked down at her hands. "Now I still sit on the porch every morning, drinking my coffee. But his chair is empty." James listened, and in her words, he saw his own story reflected back at him. 2 different lives, 2 different people, but the same lesson: happiness isn't something you buy, it's something you create. And too often, we don't realize that until it's too late. We spend our best years chasing things we think will make us happy. We believe that success, money, and status will bring us peace. We tell ourselves that once we have enough savings, enough security, enough achievements, then we'll finally allow ourselves to slow down and enjoy life. But the truth is, happiness isn't waiting at the end of a finish line. It's not something we find after years of work and sacrifice. It's in the simple, fleeting moments we overlook every day. It's in the sound of laughter at the dinner table. It's in the way the sunlight filters through the trees on a quiet afternoon. It's in the familiar voice of a loved one calling your name. It's in the mornings spent drinking coffee with someone you love, not in the number of zeros in your bank account. But isn't that the cruelest part? That we don't recognize happiness while we are living it? We tell ourselves that joy is something big, something we must chase, something we will have someday. But in the end, when everything else fades, we realize that happiness was never something we had to search for. It was there all along, in the quiet moments, in the everyday love, in the people we thought would always be there. James wonders how many people, just like him, are still making the same mistake. How many are choosing work over family, distractions over presence, the illusion of more over the beauty of what already exists? How many will one day find themselves standing in an empty kitchen, staring at an untouched coffee cup, wishing they had just sat down when they had the chance? Happiness is not in the things we acquire. It's in the moments we choose to embrace. If you still have time, don't waste it chasing things that won't hold you when you are old. Don't wait until you are standing in front of an empty chair to realize that happiness wasn't in your bank account. It was in the moments you let slip away, because at the end of it all, you won't remember the money you made, the deals you closed, or the things you owned. You'll remember the mornings on the porch, the sound of a familiar laugh, the people who made life worth living. And if you're lucky enough to still have those people, sit down. Pour the coffee. Stay a little longer. Because one day you won't get another chance. James had spent years believing that time was the greatest thief. But what he never realized was that sometimes we are the ones who let it slip away, not because we are too busy, not because we are too distracted, but because we are too proud. He had wasted years not chasing success, not building wealth, but holding on to something far more destructive: resentment. It had been over a decade since he had last spoken to his son. He still remembers the argument, sharp words thrown like daggers, a slammed door, a silence that grew heavier with each passing year. At first, he had expected an apology. Then he convinced himself that he deserved one. Time passed, and the silence between them became something permanent, something neither of them dared to break. He would think about calling, but pride would whisper, "Why should I be the one to reach out?" He convinced himself there would always be another day, another opportunity. Then the phone rang. Not his son's voice, just a stranger, a doctor, speaking words that turned his world on its head. "There's been an accident. He's in critical condition." James barely remembers the drive to the hospital, only the weight in his chest, the feeling that he had wasted time he would never get back. He walked into that sterile, too bright room and saw his son lying there, bruised, broken, unconscious. He wasn't an angry young man anymore. He was just a son. And James wasn't a man waiting for an apology. He was just a father, desperate for one more moment. Sitting by that hospital bed, he thought of all the times he could have picked up the phone. All the birthdays missed. All the holidays spent apart. All the words he never said. And suddenly none of it mattered anymore. Not the argument, not the pride, not the stubborn belief that he had been the one who was wronged. The only thing that mattered was whether or not he would ever get the chance to say, "I'm sorry." He almost didn't. His son came close, too close to never waking up again. And James realized something in that moment, something that had taken him far too long to learn. We spend so much time looking back, replaying old wounds, clinging to old pain, convincing ourselves that holding onto it gives us power. But all it really does is rob us of the time we do have. Regret is heavier than any burden we carry, and yet so many of us refuse to set it down. We carry old grudges, old wounds, as if they define us. We tell ourselves, "I'll forgive when they apologize, I'll move on when I feel ready, I'll reach out later." But later is never guaranteed. And the truth is, the people we love can be gone in an instant, leaving us with nothing but the words we never got to say. James was lucky. His son woke up. And in that fragile, fleeting moment, James made a choice to never let pride steal another moment from him again. But not everyone gets a second chance. How many of us are still waiting? Waiting for the right moment to mend a broken relationship? Waiting for the perfect time to forgive? Waiting to let go of pain that no longer serves us? But waiting only keeps us stuck in the past. And while we're busy holding onto old wounds, life moves forward without us. James sees it all around him. The father and daughter who haven't spoken in years because of an argument neither can fully remember. The siblings who drifted apart over something as trivial as money. The lifelong friends who let one misunderstanding erase decades of love. So many people standing on opposite sides of silence, waiting for the other person to make the first move. But what if that move never comes? What if one day you wake up and realize that the person you were waiting for is already gone? James wonders now what would have happened if he had lost his son that night. What if the last words they ever exchanged were words spoken in anger? Would he have spent the rest of his life haunted by the silence between them? The weight of regret is unbearable. It lingers in the quiet moments, in the empty spaces where love should have been. It fills the air with what-ifs and if-onlys, questions that will never have answers. But the good news? It's a weight we don't have to carry, because at any moment we can choose to put it down. So, what are you holding on to? A fight that doesn't matter anymore? A mistake you made long ago? A version of yourself that you refuse to forgive? Whatever it is, let it go. Not because they deserve forgiveness. Not because the past doesn't hurt. But because you deserve peace. Because at the end of it all, we won't wish we had held on to our anger longer. We won't wish we had spent more time proving we were right. We will only wish that we had more time with the people we love. If you still have time, don't waste it. Make the call. Say the words. Let go of the past before it's too late. Because one day you'll wake up and realize that the only thing standing between you and the people who matter most was you. Time is relentless. It moves forward without asking, without waiting, without giving second chances. And yet, most of us live as if we have forever, as if the people we love will always be there, as if the dreams we hold can always wait, as if there will always be more time to say the things left unsaid. But there comes a moment when we realize the truth: we don't own time, we only borrow it. So, what will you do with the time you have left? Will you continue chasing things that won't hold you when you are old? Will you let pride keep you from healing a broken relationship? Will you keep waiting for a future that may never come? Or will you finally start living, truly living, not just by existing, but by embracing each moment, by loving fully, by being present for the people who matter most? Because when your final day arrives, and it will arrive for all of us, it won't be the size of your house, the number in your bank account, or the titles you held that will define your life. It will be the love you gave, the memories you created, the way you made people feel. If you still have time, use it wisely. Don't let another day slip away in silence. Pick up the phone before the distance becomes permanent. Forgive before you no longer have the chance to say, "I'm sorry." Love while love is still here. And if this message has resonated with you, if you believe that life is too precious to waste, I invite you to join me here at Elderly Wisdom Story. This is a place where we talk about the lessons that truly matter, where we share stories that remind us how to live with purpose, with love, and without regret. If you haven't already, take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Which of these lessons spoke to you the most? What will you do differently with the time you have left? I'd love to hear your story. Because in the end, stories are all we leave behind. Let's make sure they're worth telling.